You're looking at live pictures from a Rand Paul rally in Denver this evening, where the candidate just said that he's going to filibuster the budget deal that was just announced with great fanfare. Tomorrow, he's headed to Boulder for the third Republican debate and the chance to plot a comeback. Meantime, the real story is and remains Donald Trump. We're awaiting his appearance later this hour in Sioux City, Iowa. But Trump faces, for him at least, an unusual challenge as he heads to the debate stage. He's no longer king of the hill, top of the heap. In a new national poll out this morning, the mild-mannered but still hardline conservative Ben Carson has a 4-point edge over the less than mild-mannered Donald Trump. This comes the day after Carson took the lead over Trump in two separate Iowa polls. On Morning Joe today, Trump himself expressed his disbelief.
I don't get it. I'm going there actually today, and I have, tremendous crowds and tremendous love in the room. And, we seem to have hit a chord. But some of these polls coming out, I don't quite get it.
So what does Trump need to do in tomorrow's debate to become #1 once again? Joining me now, Brian Darling, former communications director for Senator Rand Paul, and Amy Holmes, anchor on the Blaze TV. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Brian, I just want to start with you with this breaking news from Rand Paul, who says he's going to filibuster this new budget deal. There was a time when a lot of Republican senators thought this whole idea of shutting down the government was a bad idea, but here you have your former boss saying he's going to go out and doing it. Doesn't that imperil, if all of the presidential candidates are out there doing this, imperil this budget deal?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope the budget deal is imperiled because it's a really terrible deal. And I love it when Rand Paul or other conservatives talk dirty to the movement by using the F word, filibuster, because that's the only way to really stop this awful deal. It needs to be slowed down. It's something that was dropped in the laps of members of Congress just yesterday, and they have 1 day to read it. So filibustering it will slow it down, give the American people an opportunity to see what's in it, and what they're going to see they're not going to like. No real cuts to spending. All the big cuts come out in 2025, which nobody expects 10 years down the line for any real cuts to come into effect.
Okay, let's listen to what Senator Paul actually said just now.
One thing I do have to announce today, though, is that I will filibuster the new debt ceiling bill. I think it is a horrible, it's hard for me not to use profanity in describing it.
Amy, the last time we entered this kind of budget crisis didn't come out so well for the Republican Party. What is the strategy here for Rand Paul and for Republicans in general?
Well, it didn't do so well for the Republican Party, but it did well for the senators who were doing the filibustering. And if you look back to Rand Paul's filibuster when it came to, or going to the Senate floor when it came to NSA wiretapping, this really increased his popularity with Republican voters, with conservatives in particular, and the attention on him, which he's been struggling with as he's been trying to run for the GOP nomination. So while I don't think it's good for the Republican Party, I do think it's good for Rand Paul.
Brian, this is going to set up an interesting dynamic on the debate stage. Wonder how many of the candidates are going to raise their hand and say they would vote for this budget package, including the debt ceiling lifting up there. It's awkward for the folks at the center, isn't it?
Well, maybe John Kasich, he'll be the only one that will support it. I mean, it really isn't a great deal, and they do in Congress have time to redo a deal. I mean, this is a deal, the debt limit, we don't hit the debt limit until maybe next week. So there is time to fix it, but this is going to be the centerpiece of the debate. You're going to hear these members talk about this issue, the big issue. You're going to hear them talk about Hillary Clinton and her testimony and going after her on Libya policy. And it should be fascinating to see who's toughest on Hillary Clinton and who's toughest on this budget deal, because you're going to have a bidding war between Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, and Rand Paul, who are all going to stand in the well of the Senate and try and stop this bill.
Amy, I hate to point this out here, but the debt limit next week is not a whole lot of time for something that can grind the economy down to a halt here. If you're the Republican Party and you're saying we can do a better job of the economy, and you've got all the candidates saying, well, we're not going to raise the debt ceiling, that's not something that business leaders want to hear.
Well, the official debt ceiling limit is November 3rd, but as we've seen in these other 11th hour, sort of playing chicken controversies, that in fact that number is movable. A small point in the weeds, voters don't really care about that. But I actually agree with your other guest that tomorrow night it does give these Republican candidates an opportunity to focus on economic issues, entitlement reform, addressing the national debt, talking about their tax plans and how they would propose that we don't get to this point and that we don't get to budgets that are breaking the bank.
One small problem, of course, though they'll be talking about the economy and the budget deal, no doubt. Donald Trump has been going after Ben Carson on the issue of abortion. What if we can play that sound right now?
Ben he was pro-abortion not so long ago, as everybody has told me. I don't know it personally, but that's what I've been told. And all of a sudden, he's so hard on abortion, under no circumstances virtually can there be exceptions. And you say, well, how does that happen? Were you pro? And not long ago, by the way, and then all of a sudden you can't even have exceptions. So that's an unusual stance, and I think people will look at that.
Brian, Donald Trump is going to want to claim back that #1 spot. Sounds like he's going to want to take on Ben Carson on social issues.
Yeah, it's all about Iowa. And Donald Trump is talking to Iowa voters. He's talking to evangelicals. His questioning of the Seventh-day Adventist religion is also part of the strategy to try and knock down Ben Carson in Iowa, because Donald Trump sees Carson as his biggest person to fight in Iowa. So you're going to probably see this come to a head during the debate. They're going to be standing right next to each other, and we're going to hear them debate this issue. They're by far ahead of the rest of the pack. It's Donald Trump, Ben Carson, and the rest of them. And I think most eyes are going to be on those two to see how they do.
Going to be fascinating to watch. My great thanks to Brian Darling and Amy Holmes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And be sure to watch the Republican presidential debate tomorrow on our system.